The question of fighting illegal immigration has been a hot topic, and the Justice Department is now suing several states over their immigration laws. Here now are attorneys general from 3 states being sued. Tom Horne joins us from Arizona, Alan Wilson from South Carolina, and Luther Strange from Alabama. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's good to be with you. And in Phoenix, Arizona, it's warm.
Oh, well, I'm a little jealous, a little chilly here in D.C. today. I actually want to start in Alabama, if we can, Luther, with you. You've got one of the newest laws. The DOJ has already filed one suit. Another one may be coming. They're investigating on the ground. They say already your law is having very adverse effects. How do you respond?
Well, I think part of that response is because we're winning in the courts. Our law, unlike the law in Arizona, has been upheld substantially by 2 federal courts. And so I think that explains a lot of their activity on the ground here. What is very frustrating to me as the chief law enforcement officer is they come to Alabama and make a lot of statements that are unsubstantiated about potential violations. If they're interested, as I am, in making sure everybody's rights are protected and this law is enforced fairly, we would certainly like their cooperation in that process, because if there is anything that's going on that's illegal, which I'm not aware of, I'd like to know about it so we can take action.
All right, let's bounce over to Arizona and Tom Horne, because you mentioned the Arizona law. The governor and others there are trying to get the Supreme Court to take up the latest appeal on the legal challenges. You could know within a couple of weeks. The justices are set to consider it next week. Do you think you'll get the high court to weigh in on your particular law?
Well, I certainly hope so. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the Ninth Circuit, 2 out of the 3 judges held that we were preempted from having our law go into effect because we were interfering in the federal government monopoly of foreign policy. Well, we haven't opened embassies or done trade deals. What we've done is passed a law that foreign countries disagree with, including Mexico and other countries have intervened. Well, we do a lot of laws that foreign countries disagree with, such as capital punishment. If we've reached the stage where a federal court can negate a state law because we passed laws that foreign countries disagree with, I think we're in pretty big trouble.
And that is an issue in South Carolina as well. Alan Wilson, I want to check in with you because with the lawsuit that you have going on there, I understand at least 16 Latin American and Caribbean nations have weighed in. They want to get involved with this lawsuit. They want to have a voice in it because of the law that you've passed in South Carolina. They think it will cause discrimination against people who originate from their countries. What do you make of that foreign involvement in this particular debate?
Well, I'm not really concerned with their involvement. You know, we have a duty in South Carolina, as my counterparts in Arizona and Alabama, to enforce the laws as promulgated by our respective General Assemblies, and that's what we're doing. The policy has already been fought and decided by the General Assembly. Our job is to enforce the law. And so what other countries and third-party groups think is irrelevant to that end. Our job is to promote the law as it's passed, unless it's unconstitutional. In this case, it is my opinion that our law here in South Carolina on immigration is very constitutional and not preempted by federal law.
All right, it is a hot topic. I want to play a little bit of the forum that we had last night with the presidential candidates to hear them talk a little bit about immigration.
In a free society, the citizens have to bear responsibility for their own culture and their own society, and ultimately, I believe they are more trustworthy. If you ask me, would I trust a jury or a Washington bureaucrat? I would rather have my fate decided by a jury of my peers than have my fate decided by a Washington bureaucrat.
I want people to know that there is a cost already to having illegal aliens in the United States. It costs us, the taxpayers, $113 billion every year, and $32 billion of that cost is absorbed by the states. And that actually works out to about $1,000 per American household. It's a very real cost.
All right, not that you're endorsing the candidates, but I want to ask each of you to give me a one-word answer on of what you've heard of the discussion so far. Whose positions on immigration are you most comfortable with in the role that you play now as the top law enforcement officer in your state? Let's start in Alabama.
Well, I think we're just now starting to hear the candidates talk about this issue, and I'm glad, because we all know that it's a federal issue that should be addressed at the federal level, and if the federal government would do its job, enforce the existing laws, then the states like Arizona and South Carolina and others would with it. So I'm very glad the debate's occurring, and I'm waiting to hear a little bit more about their positions before I make a decision.
All right, Tom, do you have a decision yet?
Yes, I've publicly endorsed Mitt Romney. He's been very successful in business, which we need in this economic environment. He was a governor, so he has political executive experience, and so I was very comfortable publicly endorsing him some time ago.
All right, and Alan in South Carolina.
And I think you asked for one word. So if I have the bullet down, it's the law. The law. And my job as Attorney General in South Carolina is to enforce the law. What I need in a president is a president who will enforce the law. You know, at the federal level, I do not believe that it was the intent of Congress that they deprive the federal government of all the resources and ability of the states to help enforce federal law. We're not contradicting federal law. We're merely aiding the federal government in enforcement of that law. In fact, even in our law, it says to be conducted in a manner consistent with our U.S. Constitution, state constitution, and federal law. So it all comes down to that one word, the law.
Okay, I know I'm not going to get a one-word answer from you, but I want to make sure we have very limited time that I get all three of you to answer in on this question. There have been discussions about health care. There are lawsuits that involve many of your states out there coming before the Supreme Court in the spring. So the question is this. Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney have both, in some form or fashion, on a smaller fashion, they have in some way endorsed the idea of a mandate in the past. Both have admitted that publicly. Do you have any problem with that position? Does it affect your support for them? Again, we'll start in Alabama.
Well, I have a problem with individual mandates. That's why our state supports the lawsuit against Obamacare. So I'm hopeful that the court will see it our way, overrule that mandate, and I'll wait to see how the candidates shake out on that. But that's my position.
All right, Tom?
Yes, we've joined in the Florida action, which is actually the case going to the U.S. Supreme Court. And our position is that the Federal Commerce Clause doesn't enable the federal government to require me to buy something I don't want to buy, such as health insurance, or it might be a General Motors car next time around because the government now owns General Motors. We think that's unconstitutional. Governor Romney did that at the state level but doesn't support it at the federal level, so I'm quite comfortable with him.
All right, and Alan, you can close this out.
Well, here, for my purposes here in South Carolina, it's very simple. There are enumerated powers that give Congress the ability to do certain things. Forcing people to buy or enter into private contracts is not an enumerated power left to Congress by our founding forefathers. So I'm against that. I think it's a dangerous, slippery slope we're going down. It's an enlargement of the congressional and federal power that this country has ever seen, and we're going to be strongly advocating this spring to the United States Supreme Court that that is an overreach by the Congress and by the federal government, and I will support any candidate who agrees with that proposition.
All right, Luther Strange in Alabama, Tom Horne in Arizona, and Alan Wilson in South Carolina. Thank you to our state attorneys general and our panel today.